Hi chat. Spotify Wrapped came out this week, and it was a pretty underwhelming disappointment, I would say. But I do want to use this as an opportunity to talk about music. I want to preface this video by saying this isn't going to be, like, structured or anything, so if this is barely coherent and kind of looks like my apologies. And also, I kind of feel like dirty bong water today, so, I don't- if I sound like again, or if I'm just, like, not making any sense, please bear with me. I am probably gonna have pulled up on my phone, like, the entire time, so if that's annoying, I'm sorry, but I'll try to put in accompanying pictures somewhere on the screen, probably here. The first thing I want to do is talk about my actual Wrapped, which was, I mean, again, lame, and perhaps, perchance, mayhaps, a little bit embarrassing. Although not nearly as embarrassing as some others I saw. So maybe I don't feel bad about my Wrapped at all, actually. My top artist this year was Radiohead, and I really don't know how I feel about that, because anyone who knows me pretty well should know that for most of my life I've actually despised Radiohead. I've always just, like, hated the sound of Thom Yorke's voice, and I've also just found him to be an incredibly irritating and grating person. So the fact that they were my most listened to band this year was a little bit of, I had to do some internal reflection. I mean, I wasn't necessarily surprised, though, because I do recall listening to a lot of Radiohead this year. Particularly the Bends. Just the entire album. I think I listened to it pretty much at least once a day, every day, the entire month of March this year. So, I don't know what that says about me, or my mental state. A lot of In Rainbows, too, and particularly the song All I Need, which was my #1 song this year. I listened to it 64 times, and was within the top 0.05% of listeners worldwide. My second top artist this year was Arctic Monkeys, which, totally not a surprise. Arctic Monkeys has been in my top 5 on a pretty regular basis. I'm not gonna lie, I do think AM is probably one of the best albums, at least of the last decade, if not maybe the last 20 years, if not maybe of all time. AM is a go-to album of mine, and then of course, obviously, I mean, I listen to their other too, but definitely I think I'm mostly listening to AM. And actually, I also really like Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino, which I know is, like, not the most popular opinion, but I really like it, actually. Does any of it make sense? No. Do I have any idea what Alex Turner's singing about for, like, the entirety of that album? No. Is he actually even singing about anything? Probably not, but I enjoy it. Number 3 was Mitski, which we've already established that I'm unwell, and she makes really good music. Number 4 was Paramore, which, if you know me, you know that Paramore is pretty definitively my favorite band of all time, and has been, I'm gonna say, since, I don't know, genuinely maybe almost the entirety of my life. I've been thinking I specifically want to make a video about Paramore, where I rank every single Paramore song, including their unreleased ones, because you can bet your ass I have opinions on those too. And that might be deranged, but we've already established that I'm unwell. So, genuinely, there's not a single Paramore song that I don't like, and I think I know all of the words to all of them. I love Paramore. My 5th artist was honestly kind of a bit of a surprise. It was A Perfect Circle, which is, like, I guess kind of like a side project of the guy from Tool. I think this is one of those scenarios where I listen to, like, 3 songs by them, like, on repeat for, like, 5 weeks every day, and then I just kind kind of stopped. I think that that's what happened here. But I mean, there are quite a few Perfect Circle songs that I do really like. Their most popular songs I quite enjoy: Judith, The Outsider, Three Libras, Weak and Powerless. Honestly, pretty much anything off of, especially 13th Step, The Noose, Blue. I really like Blue. I listen to Blue a lot, actually. They're fine. I honestly thought that Linkin Park was gonna be in my top 5, and I'm genuinely very shocked that they weren't. But I think what happened there was I did most of my Linkin Park listening, like, I'm gonna say the last 4 months of the year, and the data for the last couple months seems to maybe perhaps not be the most accurate out of all of the data from the year. And I mean, I know they kind of stopped counting it in like October-ish anyway. So, you know, I think that's what happened there. But yeah, I listened to an embarrassing amount of Linkin Park this year. A lot of the entirety of Hybrid Theory. And then also quite a few songs off of Meteora too. And then just like kind of various songs of theirs sprinkled in. But obviously, I mean, those 2 albums are their best albums. And I don't think that there's a lot of people that would disagree with that. I feel like that's probably a pretty popular take. But those were my top artists. My top songs, I know I mentioned All I Need was the top song, All I Need by Radiohead. Number two was Von Dutch by Charlie XCX. And I think seeing those 2 songs next to each other shows you everything you need to know about me as a person. Moving on, one of the genres that I listened to by far the most this year was a lot of like, I don't know, I guess like modern shoegaze. Obviously, Wisp, I mean, I feel like if you listen to modern shoegaze, you probably know who Wisp is. I feel like she's kind of the face of shoegaze at the moment, so, you know, I mean, I like Wisp. Other things I listened to kind of in that ballpark this year were, I mean, obviously a lot of Deftones, which I think Deftones was my #1 artist last year. Still a lot of Deftones. Some Loathe, Fleshwater, which is such a weird name, and I love it. I love it, but every time I tell somebody that I'm listening to Fleshwater, they're like, what the f are you talking about? I really like Fleshwater. Violent Vira, who's actually like an artist I found out about from TikTok, which there's very, very few musicians I found out about through TikTok that I think anything of theirs actually sounds good, but she's a very, like, an early emo kind of vibe, and I really like it. Flying Fish, Super Heaven, Julie, obviously some more. There's this one artist where I'm not entirely sure how to say her name. I'm just gonna put her in here. Some Soft Cult, Midrift, and then some other stuff that I have, like, kind of thrown into that same playlist with that stuff, but isn't, you know, quite in the same genre, is a lot of 9 Inch Nails, which is, again, like, also a classic for me. Also a lot of She Wants Revenge. Bouncing back to nu metal for a minute, I also listened to a decent amount of Slipknot, which is also an artist that I do like, but I am kind of pretty picky, I would say, with like what Slipknot songs and albums I will listen to. I'm gonna say like their first 3 or 4 albums, and then everything after that is kind of like, it's just not, I don't know, it just doesn't stand out to me. Maybe a little bit embarrassing to admit on camera, but there were definitely a couple Papa Roach songs that I listened to quite a bit this year. There were a couple 3 Days Grace songs. I'm trying to think of anything else kind of in that department, I guess, of like divorced dad music. I've been in my divorced father era lately. Which I suppose kind of branching off of that, I also listened to a lot of like 90s rock, grunge, and grunge adjacent type stuff this year, which, again, something I have listened to on a regular basis my entire life. A lot of Pearl Jam, actually a lot of Stone Temple Pilots this year, which I've always liked STP, but definitely I think more than previous years. And I actually bought Core on CD a couple months ago. That was a nice little find. Alice in Chains I've listened to on a regular basis, again, probably since I was like 13, and no longer being a teenager anymore, I can say that that was a while ago. Obviously, Soundgarden. Nirvana is weird because I'll go through like a really short period of time where I'll be like, wow, I love Nirvana. And I'll listen to a lot of Nirvana for like a week. And then it starts to hit that point where every song is like, I don't want to sound pretentious and be like, ugh, this song is too popular. But like, even like the like, I don't know, like underrated songs, like a lot of them are really popular and are just kind of played all the time. So after like a week, it kind of gets hard to listen to, I guess, which like sucks because I do really like Nirvana, but it's like, I feel like there's only so much I can handle before I'm like, maybe I should stop, because I really don't want to get to the point where I'm like, ugh, I don't want to hear this song anymore, you know? Lately, especially, as in like the last couple of weeks, I've also been listening to a lot of Bush, which is not a band that I've really ever listened to for the most part, other than, you know, having heard like a couple of their most popular songs. At least they're like their very early stuff. Like I don't know what else they've done, but at least the very early stuff I enjoy. Complete total 180 from everything that I just talked about. I'm also gonna say I've been listening to a lot of what I am going to refer to as early 2010s millennial indie electro pop music. Which, that sounds like one of those fake AI generated genres that Spotify would come up with on your Wrapped, but I promise you, if you know what I'm talking about, then you know what I'm talking about. But I'll give examples. A lot of MGMT, which generally listen to a lot of MGMT anyway, but especially this year, I think. And they put out a new album this year that was actually really good. So, obviously some Tame Impala, but like particularly earlier Tame Impala, I don't really know how I feel about like some of his more recent music. Like it's not bad, I just don't know that it's quite for me. Group Love, Neon Trees, M83, Empire of the Sun, that kind of stuff. There's one Big Data song I've been listening to a lot for nostalgia reasons, Dangerous. Also a lot of Fantagram, actually. Definitely a couple of their songs that also just like immediately bring me back to a point in time, like 12 years ago. Actually, when did that album come out? Holy that was like 12 years ago. That's crazy. I don't like that. Anyway, now I'm just gonna talk about miscellaneous. A lot of Phoebe Bridgers, which, again, mentally unwell. Who would have thought? Not even anything in particular, just miscellaneous Phoebe Bridgers songs. And then, of course, obviously, like, the associated acts. I mean, Boy Genius and Lucy and Julian. I'm gonna say the past, like, year and a half or so, I've been listening to a lot more of Hayley Williams's, like, solo stuff. Because I didn't really listen to it when it came out. Not for any particular reason, I kind of just somehow kind of forgot about it, but I have been going back and listening to that stuff, and I do really like it, actually. Not like all of it is for me, but there are still quite a few songs that I actually do find myself listening to on a pretty regular basis, especially Just a Lover. Oh my god. I love that song. That's one of those songs where I'm like, I need as many people as possible to listen to this song. A lot of Bully, who I found out about probably, I'm gonna say about 2 years ago now, and ever since, I was just like, whoa. She also has like kind of a bit of a 90s rock inspired sound, I would say, pretty similar to Soccer Mommy, which she actually also has like a song with Soccer Mommy, and I really love that song. It's called Lose You. It's very good. And then, I mean, speaking of Soccer Mommy, I like Soccer Mommy. She also had a new album come out this year. And I actually don't think I finished listening to it all the way through. But it was like, you know, like it was good. It was Soccer Mommy.
Let me thank Soccer Mommy for the music.
Saying that though is making me realize I really didn't listen to much of any new music this year, actually. I genuinely think the only albums that came out this year that I listened to were that Soccer Mommy album, that MGMT album, and Brat. I really didn't listen to much K-pop this year, which, like, K-pop has never been a huge genre for me to begin with. It's just, K-pop is so weird, and the industry is really weird, and it's just, yeah, I don't know. Like, it's a thing that I enjoy at a very distant, very casual level. And I feel like that is how it should be enjoyed, and I could and probably will make an entire video unpacking my thoughts about K-pop and the K-pop industry and K-pop fans and how I think they're kind of weird. But for now, I will leave it at that. I also listened to quite a bit of Daughter this year, which I'm trying to find a way to describe them. I guess sort of imagine like female-led version of like a very early The Neighborhood. But I also, for the most part, immensely dislike The Neighborhood, so that feels like such an injustice to their music. They did the entire soundtrack for Life is Strange Before the Storm, and I already knew who they were before that game came out a couple years ago, but definitely after that, I would say, is when I really started to listen to their music. The Strokes is a band that I surprisingly somehow never really got into for the most part until this year, but I've been listening to a lot of The Strokes. Also, in the realm of, like, early 2000s rock, I've also been listening to quite a bit of, the Von Bondies, who made, like, one song that I loved when I was a kid. And for years, I could not remember the name of this song. The only thing I could remember was just, like vaguely what it sounded like in my head. And then I finally remembered any of the words to it and was able to find it this year, and I was like, yes! Like, I was ecstatic. I was so happy. But yeah, I think they're really underrated, actually. I can't say I know a lot of people that have ever heard of them, or at the very least know them by name, but they have some very good songs. I listened to a decent amount of Metric this year, and also, I suppose, loosely similar, I also listened to a lot of the Yeah Yeah Yeahs. My fifth most listened to song this year was actually Maps. But I swear to God, that was, like, before it blew up. And that's not me trying to be like, I listened to this song before it blew up. Like, genuinely, that was just a really weird coincidence. Totally listened to a lot of Jimmy Eat World this year. Also, The Killers.
I've been aware of The Killer since birth.
A decent amount of Beep a Doobie. A lot of Slow Pulp. Pretty decent amount of the Marias, who I've also been listening to. Not to be pretentious, but I have been listening to them since they had like 2 songs. A lot of REM, as always. Some Garbage. I also had a huge Portishead moment, but like, I kind of have a huge Portishead moment every October, I'm gonna say. The second it starts getting dark out, like kinda early, and the spirit of Halloween is in the air, I start listening to so much Portishead, and then also just like the Silent Hill soundtracks, but especially the soundtrack to Silent Hill 2, which is one of my favorite games of all time. Some Tears for Fears, some U2, some Bowie. I was also on a little bit of a Police kick for a little bit at some point this year. I have no recollection of when, but I do know that that happened at some point. If we're talking more like old school shoegaze, a lot of Slowdive. I love Slowdive, and I have for years. Souvlaki is genuinely probably one of my favorite albums of all time. I love it. I think it's a masterpiece. Obviously, My Bloody Valentine. A good amount of Lush. some Mazzy Star, the Sundays. I think that that's just about it. I'm sure that there's probably some stuff that I'm forgetting. But, yeah. That's what I've been listening to. And if going through all of this has shown me anything, it's that I'm kind of a loser who just listens to the exact same things every year and not much new which isn't a total shock to me. I kind of already knew that to some degree. But this was definitely probably my worst year for that. So next year, I am going to try to keep that in mind. Maybe try to push myself a little bit more. Or maybe I won't. Maybe I will just listen to the exact same things over and over again for another 365 days. I don't know. Guess we'll see.